Hello and welcome back to Belmont Bunch. I hope everybody's doing well in these tumultuous times, and I am going to distract you with some okay hockey predictions. Is that all right? Okay. Today we're going to start with the 8 seed Calgary Flames and the 9 seed Winnipeg Jets in the Western Conference qualifying round. So let's get into it right off the bat. I didn't just break anything. So on the Winnipeg side, you have an interesting top 6, a fun top 6 with one key obvious figure that doesn't really fit in. One of these things is not like the other. Cody Eakin, probably more of a third line center or a 4 on a really, really good team. Yeah, it's kind of a mess. A lot of injuries, as you can see. Brian Little struck by a puck earlier in the year, and he is done for the year as far as we know. That was the last news on him that I had seen. That was in February that he was said to be out for the year. Now, out for the year in February didn't account for a July season, so we shall see, what goes on with that. By the way, I got these lines, so don't yell at me, from Daily Faceoff. So, obviously the first line is really, really solid. Connor's having a fantastic year, closing in on 40 goals. Scheifele's just a fantastic two-way center. Blake Wheeler, power forward, doing what he does. A lot of assists from him. Eller's having a great year. Line, pretty good year. I know, the expectations for him are really high. I think he had 28 and 35. 28 goals, 35. So this is. The expectations, because he has been successful at a extremely young age, is that eventually he'll be able to be on the OV scale. We'll see. I think he's got the potential. It's just a little bit of growing. And he's still young, so don't worry about it. The bottom 6 is a worry. Obviously, the center depth is a worry. Because in my opinion, you have three third-line centers. Although Adam Lowry, not a very productive point getter. Kopp and Roslovic have been decent, so it's good to have them flanking Lowry, at least, who doesn't do much in the scoring department. You got Shore, Appleton, and Perreault, not the most productive bottom 6. But when we flip over to Calgary, you'll see that's consistent for the series. Defensively, we thought it was going to be a mess this year. No Dustin Byfuglien. They trade Trouba to the Rangers. Oh, they get this Neil Pionk guy back. Oh, who the hell is this guy? He's a pretty good power play offensive defenseman. And not just on the power play. He's been pretty solid for them. And DeMello is a good defensive defenseman. Probably shouldn't be on your top pair, but what are you going to do? Not having Spiza. Spiza's not the best defenseman in the world, but experienced veteran. Probably rather have that than Pullman. Although Spiza could be an adventure at points too, so I guess that bounces back and forth. It's a lot of, in my opinion, cast-offs here. You got Beaulieu, who Buffalo and Montreal cast off. Kulikov, Panthers. DeMello actually played pretty well for Ottawa last year. Pionk, who has proven to be a good offensive defenseman. Morrissey is kind of, obviously seen as the one stalwart on the blue line. But his point totals were a little bit shaky for some of the year. But that could probably be attributed to not being paired with Dustin Byfuglien anymore, because Morrissey had a pretty solid year last year, and also not having Trouba to occasionally pair with too. So they've patched together a defense that's done an okay job. If you'll look here on the, we got the goals for, goals against per game, power play percentage, penalty kill percentage. A little bit of a worry on the penalty kill. Power play is pretty good. They're kind of, exactly what they are. A 9 seed. That's decent. But what's different than, what the stats say, that they're just a 9 seed that's like, oh, they're okay, is a lot of star power. I mean, that top 6, 5 of those players are really, really good. So, can Calgary contain that? Well, let's find out. Oh, first I should talk about the goalies before I should do that. So close to a segue. Connor Hellebuyck has been fantastic this year. And that is with kind of a patchwork defense in front of him. So that is extremely impressive. He will be probably a finalist, shot at winning the Vezina this year. Even though I didn't predict that, so it's not going to happen. Other than that, you see the injuries. Niku is the only one that's day-to-day. The rest of them are still listed as IR. So we'll see. Brian Little, obviously, the biggest of those injuries. Because if Little can play, that is a big hole filled for second-line center spot. And with that said, let's go over to Calgary now. All right, the Calgary Flames. Somewhat similar of a setup for this team. Pretty nice top 6. Deeper down the middle, probably, having Backlund. If Little were in this lineup, it would be really, really similar lineups. But still having Ehlers over Mangiapane on the left would definitely give the edge to Winnipeg in the top 6. Tkachuk continues to agitate and also put up points. So as long as you're putting up points, the agitation part will be understood. Monahan, Gaudreau, Lindholm has been a really, really potent first line. Not quite as potent as the Winnipeg first line. Pretty solid nonetheless. Lindholm has fit in very, very well. He was closing in on 30 goals. He seems to fit this pretty quick Flames first line. Second line, as we talked about, Backlund and Tkachuk, both very, very, very solid. Tkachuk, borderline elite, and it's just, the chemistry of the first line keeping him off it. Mangiapane, he's got 32 points this year. Pretty solid. I think you would want him on your third line, but I mean, you're not going to put Lucic on the second line just for him to be on the second line. You'll take what you can get with Mangiapane, and he's been pretty decent. That's fine. Derek Ryan down the middle on the third line. The Doctor, pretty solid. Not overwhelming point totals, but better than Lowry or Eakin on their lines. And the fourth line, Tobias Rieder, also known as the man that sunk Edmonton last year. If it wasn't for him, Edmonton would have won the cup. We all know this. Jankowski, Bennett, some generally young but unproven guys, and that they continue to not prove themselves. But their defense is a lot prettier than Winnipeg's. Giordano, obvious, fantastic Norris winner last year, was playing very, very well this year too. You got Brody, Forbort on the left. Hanifin is a key. If Hanifin comes back, that's a big boon, and he's just listed as day-to-day, so it's a distinct possibility. Obviously, they picked up Gustafsson at the deadline, who's a great power play, defenseman, put the puck on net. With Chicago last year and this year, proved to be very, very, very solid as a power play quarterback. Travis Hamonic, great defensive defenseman, as we know, as Islander fans. So very excited to see him get back into the playoffs. I know they were in there last year, but hopefully it'll last longer. And also, technically, this isn't the playoffs, so maybe get into the playoffs. And Rasmus Anderson, pair him with Giordano, get the youth with the experience. Yeah, it's good. It balances out the the inexperience come playoff time. You want experience come playoff time, and both of these teams have it. Both these teams have been in the mix over the last few years. Obviously, Calgary last year, very disappointing ending. They will have David Rittich most likely in goal, although Cam Talbot's numbers were pretty decent this year. He has played in the playoffs and been pretty decent before with Edmonton. Hanifin's a big part of this. If Hanifin plays, that's a stacked defensive core. It's a little bit surprising to see their goals against be as high as it is. And their goals for be that's less of a surprise. The goals for not being incredibly high because they're a little bit lackluster past the second line. Ryan at least is decent on the second line. Power play, pretty solid. I guess you're going to get that when that first line and Tkachuk is on a power play. Penalty kill, pretty solid, 82.1%. Definite advantage there for Calgary over Winnipeg, whereas the power play is pretty even. Yeah, so the stats are so close in this series. The head-to-head, they only got to play once. And let me see who won that. That was Winnipeg. Winnipeg won that. Let's talk advantages, disadvantages. Defensive core, we'll start with because it's the easiest to call. Yeah, it's Flames. I know the stats aren't there. If Hanifin plays, that defensive core is really good. And it's also a good point-producing defensive core. If Gustafsson is on the bottom pairing, and he is a very solid point getter, yeah, they're in a good spot there when it comes to that. Winnipeg, they've held it together pretty well this year, and I have to give them a lot of credit for that. But a lot of credit also goes to Connor Hellebuyck. Segue to goalies. Big advantage. Winnipeg in goal. Hellebuyck, fantastic year. And Rittich, decent year. Talbot, decent year. But Hellebuyck, as long as he stays healthy, slipped into an accent there. As long as he stays healthy, Hellebuyck gives Winnipeg a distinct advantage in goal. So we have two distinct advantages so far. Calgary defense, Winnipeg goalie. Forward group, it's tough. They're interesting because they're both kind of weak outside the top six. Outside the top six. Down the middle is the distinct weakness for the Jets in that forward group. For Calgary, it's more of like the young guys that haven't really proven much yet. Dubé, Jankowski, Bennett. I mean, maybe you hope Lucic, who's had good playoff performances before he was a fossil. It's close because you look at the top six for each, and there's probably the tiniest bit more consistency with Calgary in having Backlund versus Eakin. And at the same time, you got Ehlers versus Mangiapane, and that's definitely going to Ehlers. And the top line, slight edge to Winnipeg. So by a very tight margin, I'm going to give the forward group to Winnipeg. Roslovic and Kopp have been productive enough outside of the top six, more so than Lucic and Dubé, to get them just enough depth. Now, can they roll four lines? Neither team really is rolling four lines in the way that, not to just kiss the ass of my favorite team, the Islanders roll four lines, and we've seen in the playoffs, that's important, because if you have a good fourth line that can wear out other teams' better lines, then your star line can come on and do something. Now, the Islanders need a star line first, but so by the very slightest of margins, I am going to give this series to the Winnipeg Jets. Both teams have experience in the playoffs, so that is pretty even. The numbers, pretty close. Slight advantage. Winnipeg in goals and goals against. Special teams a little bit better for Calgary. Tough time getting past how scary Winnipeg's 5 of their top 6 forwards can be. All it takes is one of their centers to step up for them to be even scarier. The Flames, their defensive core is very pretty. It's just bottom 6, it's not great. And, the top 6 is very, very, very consistent and solid. And it's just not enough. And I think the goaltending really pushed me over. Connor Hellebuck versus David Rittich. Big save Dave, perhaps. I don't know where I was going with that. But Connor Hellebuck had an unreal year, and a goalie can carry you in the playoffs. So that was kind of the deciding factor. So we've got Winnipeg in, we'll call it 5 games. Expect this one to be a lot of fun. I'm very excited for this one. I do like both of these teams a lot, as evidenced by me having jerseys for them. So like and comment below, like and subscribe first, then comment below on your opinions, because I want to hear your opinions. I might put a poll up on Twitter too, and I want to see who does a better job of predicting these, myself or my viewers. Do that, beat me, shouldn't be too tough. I constantly get these things wrong. I think last year my cup teams got eliminated in the first round. So, yeah, that's it for this one. Keep an eye out for us to continue the qualifying round series. Tomorrow, we're going straight through this week, everyone. 8 days a week. Yep. All right, we'll see you next time.